the same thing that will have you not say what's actually true and real for you is the same thing that's killing you long before your physical death.
Embodied Business. Welcome back to the Embodied Business Show. I am excited today because I have a part two. I've had this guest on my podcast before, and he opened a whole world. I had women from all over the world speaking into like, oh my, I've never heard a man speak like this before. It's so refreshing. So welcome back, Garrain, to the Embodied Business Show.
Thank you so much for having me. And this time we're in person, so
We're
I'm
in
really
person.
excited.
Yeah, we won't have any technical glitches this time.
Yeah.
So
My best work is in person.
yeah, yeah, I feel that. I remember when I first seen you, like, well, not first seen you, but at Preston's house, I'm watching you, you're just in your own zone, like dancing in the corner. And I was like, this guy is just never off. Like, it's just always there. And so I'm really excited. We were talking just now about how you're like playing fully with your music and really letting the creative edge flow through you now.
Yeah.
I'd love to know, and this is just a personal, selfish question, because every time I see you, there's every conversation that we have, there's something that just like flows through you straight away. Like
Yeah.
it's just like God is constantly channeling, like available, available, available.
Yeah.
I would love to know, like, is there any moment that you're ever off?
Yeah. I was off last night when I was going into the cold plunge. I'm like, I don't want to do it. My wife was like, you got to do it. You got to work on the part of your mindset. Da, 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 da. And I was just like, I don't want to do it. And then finally I just was like, it's just cold. And then I went in there. So there are moments. I have moments. You know how people say, oh, I had a bad day. I will not let a whole
Mm,
entire day be bad.
yeah.
When my intention is to create a game that I actually like playing.
Mm,
And so I'll have bad moments, or I'll have um, moments where I need a higher level of awareness. And because this is how I've designed my life, my friend goes, it's like, so God, I can't talk to you. You're too positive. I was like, you know how crazy that shit sounds?
mm,
It should possibly be the other way around. I can't talk to you. You're too negative.
yeah.
I was like, but to be able to experience and see the seed that's connected to a much larger picture, and then allow yourself to live in possibility, knowing that if you allow yourself to dwell in a lower vibration that affects your intimacy, your capacity to create,
Mm.
your intimate relationships, the way that you parent, projects that you're releasing, I'm like, it ain't worth it. Like, it ain't. And I do believe that feeling your emotions
Mm.
is very valid, but I'm not dwelling in that feeling. I'm gonna allow myself to feel it, say a couple of curse words, go get my feet in the earth. And it was like, okay, G, you got a few minutes
Mm,
because you got a big purpose
mm.
and this isn't working towards your purpose. And that's what holds me accountable.
I love that you said that though, because if you actually are feeling it, that's all it should take.
Yeah,
Like when we speak, like somatically from the body.
absolutely.
Yeah. And this is a lot of your work. Like we recently went to one of your events, my partner and I.
Voices of expression. Yeah.
It was so fun. I have to just like it actually blew my mind because I had just come out of Muse retreat with Alexi like days before. So I was cracked open and you were like, you went there. I was like, I couldn't not with the space that you created. It was like
Yeah.
incredible. But just the way that like that you move energy with music, with sound, with all of those pieces, it's so fitting that you are like this and that, it's just your way of being, by the time this releases, it'll be the week after Blair's podcast with me
I love it.
releases.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I wanted to put you guys back to back.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I just think it's so cool to see the full dynamic of a relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, having met your children now and seeing Soul like so playful and exactly like that.
She is out there.
She's so cool. I would love to know, like, because I know for myself, and this is more of a conversation of like, what's it really like behind the scenes of living such a life where you're a yes to? Because when you have a child with big energy, when you have a relationship with big energy, when everything feels really, really big, how do you allow yourself to still hold containment with yourself in that?
Well, It's kind of like an investment.
Mm,
If you invest up front and you invest smart,
mm,
that investment can pay in dividends. So I know that there's me to hold for,
mm,
there's Blair to hold for, we hold for each other.
mm,
There's Soul,
mm,
there's my work,
mm.
there's Chief, and my friends and family.
Yeah.
That's nothing small.
No.
I see so many people avoiding feeling, avoiding connection. And they numb themselves out with like porn and drugs and alcohol and excuses and putting up personas and things like that to not experience what's actually there.
Mm,
But what I've learned is when you experience what's actually there and you build from there, there's no need to hold up something that's a false representation of self, and that's what actually drains your energy, because it's the leakage of energy. But when you are in your innate nature, your authentic nature, you have 100,000 times more energy that's trying to hold up 7 different images
mm.
in one vessel.
Yeah.
And so for me, knowing that being a devoted husband takes a lot of energy and a lot of presence.
Mm,
Being a committed father takes a lot of energy and a lot of presence, especially when you're committed to parenting the next generation of women and men
mm.
in your household
Yeah.
and family dynamics. That's a whole different thing. It's like a rare jewel nowadays. It
Mm.
sucks to say that, but that's a real thing.
It is. Yeah.
And so what I do is I get out ahead of it and I make an upfront investment. So I may work out a little bit harder, wake up at 4:20 in the morning and do things that deliberately expand my capacity to hold for a bigger life, so that when the bigger life comes, I'm not in this unworthy frequency trying to figure out, am I worthy of this? I'm like, no, I worked for this.
Yeah.
So I expect a life that I worked for. So I'm not surprised, like, wow, I can't believe that I had a $500,000 day within 2 hours. Like, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
So when you put in the upfront effort with the intention of expanding your capacity, when the things that come into that capacity come in, it seems effortless.
Mm,
Kind of like Steph Curry. Why is he the greatest shooter of all times? Well, he put up 100,000 times more effort and shots than no one had ever saw.
yeah.
If there's like the Ashton Hall with his morning routine, that viral guy that's winning.
I don't think
There's
I've
there's
seen
a
it.
guy that's out right now. He's got 14 million followers, but he like ultimately came out of nowhere. He's an ex-NFL athlete, but he put out this morning routine, and people are like, "Yo, it's crazy! This morning he wakes up at 3:54 and he does these few things." I'm like, I do more than he does. I just
Mm,
I just haven't posted it online, but it's like his morning routine is so crazy. It's the things that you don't see
mm,
that's done in the dark, that's done behind closed doors, that then shows up as the physical equivalent. So when you see me and the way in which I father and the way in which I do business and the way in which I carry myself and I'm not losing my cool, it's because I work front end on all of that stuff almost every single day of my life,
mm,
because I know I'm meant for a big life. So I'm setting myself up for success for when the continuous expansion happens.
mm. I have so many thoughts running through my head right now. Firstly, you just reminded me of a quote that I don't know who said it, but it's like, what you do in private, you will wear in public. And so it's like, that's the truth of it. Like, how you set yourself up is everything. But I want to talk into something really specific, because a lot of your work is around somatic work and actually opening the body for availability and those sorts of things. And this is the world that I play in as well. And I love
Yeah.
it. And the one thing that I see across the board online all the time is like window of tolerance. Like, we've got to work the window of tolerance. But what we're seeing, and I don't know if you see this, but this is something that I'm really wanting to challenge the status quo on, is because a lot of people, they're remaining so much in their safe window that they're actually not willing to expand. They're not willing to test the nervous system and create more range within that.
Yeah.
And what you just spoke into there is like, I'm going to challenge, I'm going to push myself so I can actually hold it. I'd love to know your thoughts on how, like, the world is moving with somatic work, because it's becoming a little bit like when embodiment first became that nudge
Yeah, yeah,
word
yeah.
of like, oh my God, embodiment. Somatic is starting to be that thing.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, if you actually knew how somatics work, you know how to play with it.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this?
I think it's needed.
Mm,
I think the fuckery is needed. I think uh, because cream will always, and no matter what genre, anything that you do, the cream will always rise to the top. And that's
mm,
that authentic. There's people who teach it from theory,
yeah.
and then there's people who live it. When it's lived, it just hits a little different.
Mm, mm,
When I'm hearing somebody talk, they're like, oh, 6 steps to success and da 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 da. I'm like, you got a broken relationship with your family. It's just like, I mean, like, yo, I'm not following you. I hear what you're selling,
yeah.
but I see what you're not living.
Mm,
And so the frequency is not relevant to the words that are coming out of your mouth.
mm,
Lived experience is very different than theory. So there's a lot of theoretical teachers out there.
mm,
And you need it because you need to know the difference.
mm,
Because if you don't know the difference, then everybody's the same.
yeah.
So, it's like you could wear a tank top and 20 other women can wear a tank top, but they're not going to fit it like you? And so I think more than anything, there's always going to be something that comes out. It'll get watered down, but what stands the test of time is authenticity.
Mm,
No matter what. So that's like for me, I love music. I love healing. I love transformation. I understand a great deal about somatics. And then even when I was, because of my understanding of frequency and vibration,
mm,
I realized that there's actually energy underneath the trauma. That's why I don't do a lot of trauma work. I work in the vibration underneath
mm,
it. And
yes.
so that's why the music, if you can understand how to work your instrument, you actually don't have to have the stiff shakes. That's because you don't have a relationship with those parts of your body. That's why it does that.
Yeah.
But the moment you become in communion with your body and you understand how the breath works and how the voice and the tone works, you're like, yo, I can actually play this guitar really well.
Mm,
Now you're like, but wait, how come it took me 5 days and a plant medicine ceremony and all this. And I finally released that. It was like, yo, 30 minutes and I was singing,
mm,
but with intention
yeah.
and context,
Mm,
which codes the brain and the wisdom in the body in a way that harmonizes.
mm,
While we're harmonizing, then all of a sudden it's like, boom. See, me, I don't even have to think about that because it's how I live my life,
yeah.
which that's what's going to set me apart from a lot of people who just teaches a one-dimensional thing.
Mm,
So it's not a competition for me, even though people are like, oh, I got to do something else because it's way saturated. No, your authenticity is not saturated. So you bring your authenticity to a general practice, and that's what creates the separation.
I love that so much. I remember about maybe it was like 18 months ago, I was having this moment where I'm like, do I want embodied business to be my thing anymore? And then when I actually started looking at myself, I was like, fuck, I'm overweight. I'm not happy in like how I'm living my life right now. Of course, I'm not
I was
relating
going to
to
say,
that.
you lost weight since the
Yeah,
last time
I've
I
lost
saw
like
you.
20
Yeah,
kilos, so like 40
I can
pounds.
already tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've still got a little bit to go. Like
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
on that journey, but I'm with it and I'm not hiding behind it anymore.
Absolutely.
Like before it was like this big mask of like, don't let anyone see where you're not embodied. And the
Right.
minute I landed those pieces of
And
like,
owned it.
fuck, I'm hiding in my relationship. I'm hiding here. I'm hiding there. It just opened like a whole world for me.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. But this is what happens a lot of the time for a lot of people. They don't know how to land the thing that's the most authentic piece for themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, because you've had a huge story. We've talked about it on the previous podcast that you're on, where you've been in prison, you've done like worked through the whole music industry to really come back to this place. Like for most people, when we say authentic, they think like authentic is like I'll get there, I'll get there, I'll get there. Like when I'm here, then I'm authentic.
Yeah.
But what would you say is your relationship with authenticity?
your truest self.
Mm,
It can be ugly. It can be messy, especially in the beginning. You got to get the puzzle pieces out of the box first before you can put them together. So say, for instance, the most common fear in the world is people suffering from public speaking.
yeah.
That is, people fear public speaking more than they do death. That's like an actual fact in statistics.
Wow, yeah.
But you got to say, wait, public speaking has to do with expression.
Yeah.
And expression it's not about the throat. It's actually about the confidence in the sacral chakra.
Mm,
And so, wait a second, hold on. So people are afraid. Now it makes sense why the Me Too movement was so popular, because they weren't operating from the confidence in their sacral chakra, something that was actually true. The secrets that you've kept and you'll keep to your death. It's like real for you is the same thing that's killing you long before your physical death.
mm,
And to not know it,
mm.
cemetery is not where you see the most dead people.
Yeah.
It's when they're walking around with something that's died inside of them. And that's like the same thing that would hold in that secret would also hold in your genius, hold in your gift, and hold in. And so, what I've seen my wife do this year, she said, I am just going to, because we have a word that we do every year
Mm,
that we're going to live into that affirmed word. And that's what's going to empower us to come into our next level. And hers was all about express her truth.
mm.
Well, it was express her truth with me, and it was messy,
Yeah.
and with friends, and it was messy.
Mm,
And as she started to just adjust to the messy, all of a sudden I started noticing her intuition 10x,
mm.
because your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between voice talking and voice inside.
Yeah.
So when she started acknowledging her truth,
Mm,
the intuition, she started acknowledging and voicing that. And I literally watched the flip of her fear turn into things that have empowered and inspired me. So a lot of stuff that people see in Garrain, you might as well put Blair right next to it, because most of it came from her intuition. I think you should join this men's group that I wasn't going to join. The reason why we're in Austin, Blair.
mm,
The reason, you know what I'm saying? Like the last 15 things, I think you should do this.
mm,
When it comes with the essence of her blessing
mm.
and her intuition, it's not, I can always feel when the human is only thinking about herself, and then when the divinity inside of her is giving her something and she's whispering great secrets in her man's ear.
Mm.
All of this turned on this year. It was always there, but like once every 2 months.
Yeah.
It's almost every day, because Blair has learned how to trust what's true for her and then voice it.
Mm,
And now she's just adjusted like a baby learns how to adjust to the ABCs that turns into words, sentences, paragraphs, essays, books.
mm.
So I'm speaking into that authenticity. That's the greatest way to train your authentic nature is you get an idea, voice it. You feel bad about something, voice it. Like
Mhm.
in the moment, because then the portal of possibility is open. Every single time she voiced something in the moment, whether messy or unmessy, all of a sudden she was like, oh my goodness, I got a paying client. I got 3 more things, or something good that happened to me every single time.
Yeah.
And that's just one thing.
Mm,
When that muscle of trusting what comes from your multidimensional self,
mm,
when you do that, you get out of the linear thinking.
mm.
We have intuition, we have dreams, we have hunches that don't come from no meat suit like living. Oh, I pay taxes on this spinning ball, like going where? I don't know. Like it doesn't come, it comes from a multidimensional self.
Yeah.
So your authenticity is literally what houses the vessel that has you tap into all of the dimensions put together.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you say that too, because like you can see the people who are trying to look perfect, like, and trying to have it all together, and you're like, something's just not landing for me. Like, I'm just not, what is it? Like, give me more of you. It's almost like a craving that you feel around them. And then the people who are willing to get messy, they're the most trustworthy people, I personally find. Because I'm like, I don't trust you if I don't see that there's a range of humanness with you.
Right.
And it's like, that's just my animal body being like, well, hold on a second. What are you withholding from me?
Right.
What are you not allowing me to witness with you? I love that you said that. And I also want to ask this once again from a selfish perspective, because we have these moments in my relationship where we do the same thing. We have like, I'll get the nudge. And I notice Urbane has to get himself out of the human mind to receive it as
Yeah.
well. How do you navigate that in the receivership of
Well,
that?
the thing about it is one of my greatest strengths, and which is what makes me so great as a facilitator, is understanding patterns and sequences,
Mm,
pattern recognition.
mm,
If every time Blair is in this energy and she has a hunch and good things happen far beyond what I could have done by myself or what she could have done by myself. Certain somebody that we meet that I've been trying to get on my radar, but then she's in that thing. And then all of a sudden I go to a party that she suggested me to go to. And then I meet this person who's like, oh, I'm your biggest fan.
mm.
If every time that happens, I'm like this, and I literally have to voice it.
Yeah.
I can always feel when the human is saying something.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think you should do that. I can feel it in my body.
Yeah.
But when the divinity is flowing through Blair and she gives herself permission,
Mm,
I always say, I trust your trust.
mm.
Blair knows that I'm about to, and I want to read something to you.
Yeah.
Blair knows that I'm like really taking my music head on. You got to understand, I also have a wildly successful artist power business and what I'm doing as a family. And it's just like, it's a lot. And then all of a sudden in the middle of all this, I want to create my album.
Mm.
How that could disrupt.
Yeah.
Here's what Blair wrote to me yesterday. And this is when I knew that it was super divine.
Yeah.
She wrote this to me yesterday and I was just like, whoa. She goes, because I'm meant to go to Los Angeles to record with a friend. He's the high net worth person that's sold 150 million records, but I helped him out when he was coming back to music, and now he was like, I want to support you.
Mm.
He said, I spoke to such and such, buy the flight ticket, probably make it a one-way. Bring it to life, whatever that looks like. If we need to come visit you, I'll get on a plane. I don't need details. Go be free and fly and know it's for a mission and purpose to give this calling the love and reverence it's asking for, because you are here now as this Garrain and it waited for you. I don't know what it looks like to write an album or songs. Just know I'm a full yes to whatever that is, and I love you. And I know you won't take more time than you need, even if it's a long time. So I say all that to say, I love you. I believe in you. I trust you. Now go and do your part, and God will do the rest.
Oh.
But you gotta do your part in the wisdom and honor that you know to do it in this moment and time.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Like I'm getting emotional too, because she's like, without trying to be, she's my oracle.
Mm.
She don't even have to, hey, I'm an oracle. She don't even have to name it.
Mm.
And that's honestly what I think all women are, who are trying to be something.
Yeah.
Your work is not in the doing.
Mm.
You just don't know how powerful your being is. But I live with it. Like I watched my wife give birth.
Yeah.
And I was like, in our bathtub, I was like, yo, she looked like a freaking panther in her primal state. I was like, that's a level of power I can't even fathom. And I'm way strong, physically stronger than her. But that, whatever that
Yeah.
was beyond human. And I bow my head. I don't know too many men who can like confidently say that because they got to hold the thing. I'm like, fuck holding the thing. That we're 10 times greater when you tap into that.
Yeah. And I think, like, I know Urbane in my relationship, he's just getting this now. Like,
Absolutely.
he really is feeling it.
Yeah.
And, like, even on the weekend when we were facilitating bridge, like with P and Lex, we had this moment. Lex was like, oh, do you want to do a rage release? I was like, yeah, sure. And as soon as I just tapped in, and it's like, because I can tap in and out of emotion really quickly as well, he was just like, oh, yes, go. Because he knows the minute that there's something like that, there's something coming on the other side of it. And it's like, there's not enough men, I personally believe, who have had permission from women to witness it either.
Yeah.
Because our mothers and the people who have raised us have been told, don't express, don't do this, don't do that. And so men are then in this like, well, women are quiet and subdued. They had the belief because that's how women held themselves as well. And so a lot of women want to blame the patriarchy for it. But I believe it's a co-creation of all of it.
It's a 100%. You can't blame a man who's not aware.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because boys don't cry.
Yeah.
But the percentage of men to women that commit suicide is double.
Exactly, yeah.
So wait, no. Boys actually need to express because if you don't know, if you numb out that pain, then you're blinded with football, basketball, baseball, porn, sex, alcohol, domestic abuse, rape, all of those are forms of expression.
Yeah.
Because at the point of origin, that expression wasn't met. It didn't feel safe. Oh, the strongest person I know can be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn that until I was in 2013. And I'm like, these people think like I'm a personal trainer and all this other stuff, but like they don't know, like I tried to kill myself twice in the last month. I live in my car. I'm $250,000 in debt. And then finally I was just like, man, fuck all of this shit. Like I don't want to live a lie no more. And I'm just crying and snotting. And then I wrote this post on social media that's still there. And at this time I had no influence. I had no Instagram. Like I would post, tag 40 people, and maybe 10 people would respond. So there was no kind of charge there.
Yeah.
When I posted, you think you know me, you have no idea. You know this, you know I dated this person, but what you don't know is I'm living in my car. I cried myself to sleep. I'm this and this and this and this and this. I can only afford syrup sandwiches and ramen noodle soup and things like that. But in 5 years, I'm going to retire my mom. I'm going to become a multimillionaire. And all these first message I got from somebody. Thank you for your strength. I put the gun down when I read your testimony. Fifth message. Someone shared your testimony with me. I was on my way to drive my car off a bridge. And it was in that moment I knew one of my missions was to be the voice of the voiceless, or the parts of humanity that don't feel safe enough or they can't relate to anybody. So I said, I'm going to share my story every day. I had no idea that that's what would build my business, take me to and speak into 97 countries to more than 2.7 million people. I had no idea. All I did was, I'm going to share me.
Yeah. But what most people think is like, if I share me, then I'm shamed.
Shamed, guilt. What will my parents think? Well, you know what they think now? That's my little boy. That's my little girl. Just like I like her. The way I see fit. You know, where, hey, it runs in the family comes from.
Yeah.
But what about what runs through you? So why live your whole life as a figment of somebody else's imagination when your imagination has got all these ideas, all of these gifts, all of these geniuses, most of them never met. And before you take your last breath on your deathbed, all of it comes to light. It's like only you could have brought us to life. But because you were so selfish, now we got to die with you. This could have passed on to your kids.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. And the work that I do with Preston and Alexi in the bridge rooms, like I'd been in them like 6 years ago, and this is when my journey in this world really began. And coming out of it, I remember my dad was always like, "Oh, what are you doing all that stuff for?" And he's like, not interested whatsoever. And then I was published in my first book, and I said to him, I was like, "Oh, Dad, I'm so excited. I've been published in my first book." It's like 3 years ago, 4 years ago even. And he's like, "Oh, so you're going to go and tell the world how shit of a dad I was?" And I was like, well, no, that's actually not what I did at all. Like, I talked about our journey, how we'd overcome the drug abuse and all that stuff as a family. But what I actually landed on was where we are now. That was more what I spoke into. And he was like, "Ugh," and he sat in so much shame. I said, like, whatever that is for you, you get to work on that, but I'm not going to
Absolutely.
hide my story anymore.
Right.
2 or 3 years later, he stepped into that room himself for himself. And like maybe 2 weeks ago, he called me and he's like, "You know what, Kay?" So I was sitting around a table with a group of friends, and I had this moment where I'd spent my whole life hating my dad. Yes, and I finally actually seen that my dad was just a little boy who
Mm.
didn't know how to control his emotions. And we both just cried on the phone. I was like, "Yeah," I was like, "This is all of us are." Like, and he was like, "Thank you so much for being willing to take a stand for me through just being yourself."
Yeah.
Because I stopped fighting for him to have the journey, and I just came back to myself, and I'm just going to share what's real for me. And like I think the thing is, like, people come into this work and they go, "I want you to do this and I want you to do this." And they're like trying to call everyone in, but it's how much real can you just be with yourself first?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Like when your parents get involved. Like my mom, oh man, I bashed her in so many media outlets
Mm,
because of things that she didn't do and how I thought she should have been my mother based off of what I thought was good in somebody else's relationship and things like that. But it was through this work I really got to experience, wow, I've never even asked my mom about her life. I only complained about what I didn't get. Mom, how come you made dinner at the dinner table and you would always go to your room? She was like, when I went to my room, I was crying because I felt like y'all didn't appreciate what I was doing for you, not realizing my father was murdered when I was 12. My mom and dad separated. So my mom literally had to take the role of mom and dad,
mm,
low income, and try to figure out how to survive with two badass kids.
mm.
I never, because I was a little kid, I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I did this work that I was like, wait a second. My mom had a whole life
Mm,
before I was born. She was born in the 50s between Texas and Arkansas when there was blacks and whites only restrooms. I don't know anything about that. I know I have my own version of that in the modern day, but not that.
yeah.
And you know, learning how to ask my mom questions and learn about her life, I found that my grandmother had 7 kids and she never said I love you to her kids.
Oh,
So now it made sense why my mom never said I love you, but my grandmother said I love you through her food. So now it makes sense why my mom would go after cooking dinner and cry in her room because we never said thank you to her expression of I love you.
mm,
So through this whole journey, I learned that adults are deteriorated children. If you can take it back to the child
mm,
and learn more about what impacted that child, what made the child happy, what made the child sad, all this stuff that's happening on the surface, you can actually reparent it in the body. And when the body feels restored, it has the ability to generate the same energy that you once had as a little kid, nonstop, boundless creativity. It's like all of these things that the overflow of an unexpressed child who doesn't feel safe is where most of the world are right now.
mm. Yeah, it's funny because, like, I was away from my son for like 10 days, and he was sort of in, out of our space. And so I watched his nervous system get really dysregulated in that time because it was like, when am I going to be with mom again? Like, and I noticed, I was like, last night I had this moment where he was like, no, I'm not doing that. And he was really like defiant with me essentially. And I caught myself in the moment. I was like, oh, this is just a little boy who's like, he doesn't know where he's at right now. He's completely dysregulated. And that, if it's not grounded, becomes the man who's like, fuck the world, fuck you guys. I'm not doing
Yeah.
anything that you want me to do. And I had this whole, like, I seen his whole future play out. So I just literally grabbed him and I was like, let's go and read a book. And I just like sat down with him and read a book to go to bed. And watching him just like this morning, just from that moment of like, bedtime reading, sitting together. We normally do that anyway, but I took extra time with him last night, like really connecting with him before I went to bed that I normally would do. And just watching just how different he was this morning, I'm like, that's all it takes is just
Yeah.
those moments of connection. And it can
Yeah.
be so quickly taken from us when we don't know when it's coming next.
Right.
Right. And like he's with us all the time, but because he was staying with Granny, Preston's mum, it was like, am I with Granny today or am I with you, mum? Like that was enough to trigger his little nervous system to be like, what's here? And you think about what some people walk through and they're holding all of those pieces. It's like
Yeah.
all these kids are just constantly like running the show, running the show, running the show. And especially like in the work that we do, we're literally just playing with the children in the rooms.
Yeah.
It's like, let's see how much that kid can come out and what's actually there so we can actually get to the truth of who you are. And most people are so surprised with what expression actually wants to come out. They want to throw tantrums. They want to throw themselves around the room and just like scream and kick. And these are people who are doing global movements across the world, but never had a chance to actually have that.
Right.
And when they feel it, they go out and they do so much more crazy shit in the world.
This is what I see in the highest level of office. You even see it in our government.
Yeah.
It's almost all of them. Either trying to prove daddy right or prove daddy wrong, or like you can literally watch it play out. And I didn't realize that it even was in the political space until somebody had asked me. They're like, hey, we have this big political convention coming to Austin and would love to get you on stage. I'm like, politics? I was like, I'm straight. And I was like, what's the topic? How to infuse love into politics. I was like, I'm your man.
Yeah.
So I walk on there and I'm on the stage with like Zach Bush and some other people, like really powerful people like that the world loves. And every question that was being asked of the audience, I was like, oh my goodness. Every single one of these can be responded because it was like the question was coming from a wounded child. And you can hear the wounds in the children's that are dressed up as adults.
Yeah.
And just to hear the like political responses, but my response was everything that has to do with the inner child. I was like a alien on that stage, but it was so interesting. Then all of a sudden, all the questions started getting directed towards me, and I was just like, well, I'm not a political figure. And somebody came up to me afterwards. It was like, Garrain, oh my goodness, you're like a huge political figure in Austin. I was like, what? What? He was like, no, it's the way that you lead people with love, man, like your leadership. And I was like, all right, cool, if that's how you see it. So to the highest level of office, it's people suffering from a wounded child. And those who are in it can see it.
Yeah.
That's why I go so hard. They're like, oh, hey, you're just a really good inner child coach. I'm like, thanks.
It's because we're all here in that.
What it takes
Yeah.
to really hold and see that child inside of every human, it's got to come from somebody who's holding the child inside of themselves.
Yeah. I remember having this moment at your event actually, and I was mesmerized by how much you were in play. You were just like, it was like sort of towards the end where we're all in this circle and you're singing and you're weaving and like it was so cool. And I look over and Urbane's in the same space that I'm in, mesmerized by you, just being like, oh, like, you know, and I said to him in the way home in the car, I was like, I had this moment where I was completely mesmerized by Garrain and I look over and you were doing the same thing. And he's like, he is just so free, and he actually represents everything that I locked away. Like, he was just like, he goes, I feel like there's something so big that he's just opened up for me. And I'm just like, he goes, I'm really
Send him to my retreat.
Yeah, he's actually coming. He's already talked about, he's like, I can't wait for the day when I'm working with him closely.
Yeah.
And because he said, like, there's so much around his voice. And when he speaks, he has this thing. He doesn't do it as much now because he's done a lot of work on it, but he would sit and like
Yeah.
tap his leg like this because he didn't know how to ground the energy
Yeah.
in his body because it was so big and palpable that wanted to come through. And we see that everywhere. Like, but it's like when you just let it move the way it wants to move, all that shit goes away.
Yeah, so that thing right there, when people doing his hands, is the same thing. If some people are doing somatic works and their hands start shaking,
Yeah.
the energy is so big, and you've never given yourself permission to actually feel in that area. So you're just like, and then all of a sudden it goes away. But if you learn that your body, this vessel, is a powerful temple, how would you treat a temple that you walked in? All right, cool. There's certain foods that they ask. If you're coming into a temple, there's like, you can only have water. It's like there's a certain tonality to your voice. There's a certain level of respect. So when you respect this temple like you would something outside of you, the dividends and the way, the peace, the tranquility frequency that you get to be embodied by is only because you give yourself permission to have that, and you treat it as such.
Yeah. It's such a, like, I look at some of my family members who are disconnected from their body, and I look at how I used to be. Like, I remember when I was a personal trainer, I had this moment, this is the ego, like, fully at play. I had this moment where I walked into my mum's pantry and I opened up her food cupboard and I was like, preservative, preservative, like, and I was just pulling all the food out. And I was like years later, I looked back on that of like, I was like, I could see what I was trying to do, but I still didn't know how to actually treat the body like a temple in the way that that was. Because in that moment, all I did was just shame. And so regardless of what the food was, the emotional attachment to it was still, I could have eaten so healthy and still had the same input from the shitty food because of the way I held it energetically. Like, does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I would like make sure all my, like, I was a competitor, right? So I would like, everything was measured out to the exact gram of what it needed to be. And
I used to live with a fitness competitor.
I was a figure competitor. So that's like the real muscly, bold ones, right? And if I was a single gram over, I'd be like, take that gram out. Like, it was like ridiculous how controlled I was with it. But it was like, I did that as my way of controlling my life. And then you look at like the way that I was, the minute I stopped competing, I put on like 10 kilos within like 3 days because of the shame story that was in all of those pieces. And this is how a lot of people are with their bodies, like their temple. It's like, yeah, sure, we can be doing all the right things, but how are you physically being, like energetically being with it, I should say, like spiritually, emotionally, are you connected to what you're actually feeding? Because you're not just feeding it through food and through like the other places. It's, as you said, the voice, it's the tone in which you speak in, it's all the other pieces as well. So it's pretty, pretty cool. I would love to know, right? You know, this is a bit of a controversial topic, but since
Nothing is off limits with me.
Okay, great. But since I've actually come to America, I remember last time we were here, the energy felt very different. It was light, it was fun, it was playful. And I noticed, given we've talked about politics a little bit, I noticed since everything that's happened in the last couple of months in America, when I got here, the energy was so dense. Like, it made me feel sick in my body. I was like, oh, like, what is going on here? From an energetic, without going into the details of actually what's happening, what do you feel is happening in the world right now?
I want you to think of a dog that that gets out into the neighbor's yard. And then the neighbor says, if your dog comes into my yard one more time, I'm going to call the puppy pound. So the owner puts this shock collar around the dog's neck. Before, the dog had zero issues. It was in full, light, fluffy, fun, and free. Boom. And the moment that shock and the dog goes to the invisible wall of fear, but it's going to send a shock. And the moment it goes past, it goes boom, fear, pain, boom, fear, pain, boom, fear, pain. So all of a sudden, it starts getting domesticated by fear and pain, to the point where the owner now takes the collar off the dog's neck. There's no possibility of shock, but it is mentally. So because of how fear and pain was trained in the body, the moment there's a heightened sense of fear, it still keeps the how the dog was domesticated controlled by fear and pain.
Yeah.
So now, to answer your question, humans, us, we're literally domesticated by fear and pain. That's why on the news programs, they only talk about negative stuff. News programs, whose minds you think they're programmed? People who watch it. So this is what I'm saying. So like literally, since as little kids, we've been programmed by fear and pain. However you are programmed, that's how you're controlled. This is what we call matrix. So however you're programmed, so the moment the man or whoever is pushing the buttons turns up the volume on fear, it turns on an unconscious part of how you're domesticated. It's the same reason why you walk down the candy aisle and you get froze, because it's all these primary colors. You're a little baby. The first colors you learn, primary colors. So you go to the grocery store, right before you check out, you got gossip magazines in primary colors. You got wine coolers in primary colors. And you got sugar, modern day cocaine, primary colors. The part of you that is hypnotizing is the part of you where the seed was planted. It's embedded. It's colorology. You know, they spend billions of dollars hooking people. So what I know is going on, it's not what I think, because my greatest gift is patterns and sequences. I can recognize, it makes me a master chess player. I can see the moves long before they happen at the highest level. Like, how come every time there's a major disaster somewhere, maybe a month or two later, something really big happens? Boston bombings. Boston hasn't won a World Series in 100 years. Boston wins the World Series. Houston, Hurricane Harvey. All of a sudden, it's the greatest flood Houston has ever had. Houston wins the World Series. I mean, it happened for the last 15 years. Los Angeles fires. They make the greatest trade in NBA history, from a generational player, from Luka Doncic to the Los Angeles Lakers, and nobody knows what happened. I've been watching these series and sequences happen over and over and over. The George Floyd thing happened. It's like crazy. Oh my goodness. And that's when they somehow all the emails got deleted in the government from, you know what I'm saying? This happens all the time. So anytime there is, I used to live with a magician, and he taught me all the magicians. It's the sleight of the hand. And anytime there's something going on in the frenzy of the media, they already know how people are going to react. Oh my goodness, the world is ending in 2000. Oh my goodness, let's go buy up all this water and buy up all this and buy up and spend all this money when there's a drought. And all of a sudden, these things just tend to happen. So I believe that there is turning up the fear to control those who are programmed by fear. Something else will happen. Somebody else will get away with something simultaneously.
Well, we can see what's unfolding right now as well.
100%.
Yeah.
So, and then you got people that go, oh my God, the aliens are going to attack us. Let me tell you something about aliens. And I don't know this to be fact, but if they are the highest of technology, you can take 1,000 of the smartest people in the world with their greatest technology and take one alien baby and they wouldn't stand a chance with the frequency of the alien baby. If the aliens wanted to take us out, there's nothing we could do. They would disarm demagnetize every single one of our weapons. It's not the aliens that we should be afraid of. It's the people telling us the aliens are coming that we should be afraid of.
Yeah, because it's always been here.
It's always been here. So they put it in a movie, and then all of a sudden it doesn't look so crazy. So I say all of that to say this again. Clearly, it's a hot topic for me. Here's how to protect yourself. Stay very close to God, your authentic nature, and utilize the frequency of your gift, because your gift will put you in the transcendent frequency. Anything that's in a transcendent frequency will always be protected. Anything and anyone.
Yeah.
It's not like, what will they think? No, you're already operating from the flawed human.
Yeah.
Stay close to God and the divinity within you. Your authentic nature. Learn how to open up your throat chakra, because in order to open up your throat chakra, it has to bypass all the other chakras. Learn how to open that, tap into nature as it was designed, and then you will tap into your nature as you were designed, and you will transcend the construct. And from that transcendence, you will always be protected.
Yeah, I love that. And I think too, right now we're seeing literally a physical shift in the world where some people are living in a completely different world to those who are actually operating from this way of being. And it literally blows my mind just how far from removed I am from my previous life and timelines and those things that were once a normal piece. Now, do you know Dolores Cannon? So she's like I don't even know how old she is. I don't even know if she's still alive, like, if I'm completely honest. But she's been an ancient wisdom teller who speaks on this massively on like the 3D and the 5D planes, and like how the world is literally shifting into two different figures and like two different spaces and time realities and things like that. I'd love to know your take on this of like, do you think we're moving into two, like the same world but two different frequencies?
Oil and water. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
It's oil and water. But the thing about it is to separate myself from that world. That's the trap. You go outside, you be like, oh my God, Haley's comet. Oh my God, the moon and the this and the sun. It's so crazy. I love the sunset. Oh my goodness, the eclipse. Oh, just wow. Like, I'm so forever changed. And then you go into the mirror and be like, I'm ugly. I'm fat. I'm always late. It's never going to work out for me. I'm not worthy. That's the greatest deception of all times.
Yeah.
To think that you're separate from it.
Yeah.
But if you're like, wow, to the sun, you go in that mirror and you be like, wow. Wow, my slightly crooked nose. Wow, look at the eclipse inside of me. Wow. And then as above, so below, as within, so without. Now you become all of it. Somebody asked me on a podcast the other day, Garrain, you have a lot of knowledge and wisdom. Like, tell us one thing you know. I was like, I know one thing, that I know nothing, but I know that there's an infinite knowing. And every time I surrender to the infinite knowing, I feel connected to everything, which makes me separate from nothing. I said, that's one thing that I know. So now to answer your question, all of this is all of this. And as people start to rise, people start to fall. It has to happen. That is natural order. There is no light without day. Yeah. There's no love without hate. That order comes together. You can go anywhere in the world. You can go to a desert. Nobody's around. Put that bottle down. It will instantly cast a shadow. So when you know it's a part of the whole program, it literally comes with, just think in terms of plants. You take the seed, you plant it in the dark ground. It's necessary. You need it. Yeah. Everything under there is designed to do what's under the ground. But that's where the roots happen. It has to, you literally have to have it. But then when the farmer does what they're supposed to do, nurture, give it proper water and sunlight, and give it a fertile environment, get the right soil, you will get the fullest amount of growth and the fruit. Whatever the health of the seed determines the growth of the tree and the fruit that it produces. So if you're thinking in terms of nature in that way, which is our oldest teacher,
Mm.
not a human, nature. I'm just looking at nature.
Yeah.
We all have darkness and we all have shadows.
Mm.
People try to get rid of what they actually need.
Mm.
You don't even know that if you could become in communion with your darkness, and everybody has it, then the partnership of darkness does underneath the ground what it's supposed to do. Your number one job is to elevate.
Mm.
If you don't elevate, then what's underneath the ground will come and overtake the garden. That's why weeds don't need anything to grow but time.
Mm.
So no matter how much work you do, if you give it enough time, you will literally, the weeds of your literally emotional past will come and overtake your mental garden.
Yeah.
So as the farmer of your life, to make this very simple and practical, you do everything that you do to elevate.
Mm.
The darkness inside of you is going to do what it does, but it holds the ground down and it helps develop the rooting system. That's why we have mycelium network, because it's all connected underneath.
Yeah.
Humans aren't connected to themselves. That's why they're not connected to people. So we actually have a mycelium network. We're just not connected.
Mm.
So when you know that you're all of it, and you use all of it, you use all of your gifts and all of creativity, everything is inside of you. Now you're not stuck out there like a rooster trying to be an alligator. Sounds crazy, but that's how people live their lives.
It's so true.
But when you are who you're actually designed to be, and the whole ecosystem is working, growth and the fruiting process, abundance, is natural. It's a byproduct. And the rooting system underneath in the darkness, in the shadows, will go and spread itself to the mycelium network of the ancient and ancestral network. Mycelium network, same.
Yeah. So good. It's so good. I had something come through just before. With like when we speak about ancient wisdom and like ancestral wisdom and that sort of stuff that can come through, I know that you talk about really being connected to this a lot, like through your work. And, you know, for me personally, I am as well. My partner he works deeply with his heritage and his traditions and his lineage and whatnot. I'm curious, for people who are like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, how do you, I guess, navigate that? Because you'd have people come into your world that want that and don't know how to connect into that.
Yeah.
How do you sort of like share that wisdom or magic with them, essentially?
I don't make it sound esoteric and crazy. It's like, you don't like the word ancestors? How about your mama's 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 DNA is still as inside of you?
Yeah. True.
They're like, oh, I never really thought about that. I'm like, yeah, epigenetics is real.
Yeah.
There are things that my 3-year-old daughter are doing right now, little habits that I had when I was a little kid, nobody knows, and she has it. The moment I changed that habit, all of a sudden she stopped, and she never saw me do it. That's epigenetics. It just like looks transfer, the DNA coding also transfers. That's why parents can't do anything in hiding. Is you're arguing, and then all of a sudden you pretend like everything is okay. The child feels it. I have an impeccable memory. So I remember when I was 3 years old, I was like, what was that thick energy? That was my parents fighting. Yeah. And I didn't know that was actually training me to say nothing when I get into arguments without ever seeing them do it. Yeah. So even if you think you're hiding from your kids, you're not, because you can't hide your frequency and energy. And so for me, I literally speak into some of the troubles and trials and traumas that you have may not even be yours. Yeah. They could be your grandmother's, but she never felt safe enough to do the work, and you're the one doing the work. Yeah. You're like, but it's not mine. However, if it's in your DNA, it's actually yours. Yeah. You're made up of so much more. You don't, me is here. No, me is all the way back, the eyes behind the eyes, behind the eyes, behind the, but you take it back as far as possible.
Yeah.
What if you were the chosen one
Mm.
and you've never given yourself permission to be the leader of your lineage?
Mm.
That part. So when I say that, think about anything that you've ever struggled with. What if you took on that struggle for somebody else so that they could become free? But the moment anybody in your lineage becomes free in the non-physical realm, you rise with their gifts.
Yeah.
What if? And I'm gonna just say, what if? What if you decided to choose yourself today, your full self?
Mm.
And I know if you got skin that's not black, you probably had a family, and you live in America, you probably had a family member that was a slave owner. 99% because that was the way of life. But then there's people who are like, oh, I disassociate. That was just my great grandmother.
Mm.
But the DNA is inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you're in denial, the avoiding frequency is cousin to suffering. So it will literally produce the same suffering inside.
Mm.
However, if you say, I accept my entire lineage and any harm anybody that was killed, I accept it. The moment you accept fully, you transmute.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of something years back. Like this was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. My partner and I were holding a container and he welcomed in the ancestors and he did a whole ritual around it. And afterward, we were laying in bed for like 2 hours. I had visions so I come from like Viking, English background.
Yeah.
And it was like, I could see rape and pillaging and like just, it was like I was in tears, just like crying and like seeing these women being like murdered and slaughtered and men. And it was disgusting what I was seeing. And I was like, why am I seeing this? And I looked at Urbane and I was like, don't you ever open that can of worms again. And he looked at me and he's like, he goes, you need to clean this up with your ancestors. And it was in that moment where I was like, oh, like this is where I get to stand for the women that were involved in all of that and like really clean up these wounds and work with what's here because they were trapped. They felt locked in and that they couldn't actually breathe and be free. And so it was like this moment where I had to start working through it on a really deep level. So that took me down a huge path of like different medicine ceremonies and different places to be able to be with that energy.
Yeah.
But most people, they'll have visions or they have things like this and they don't have any understanding or willingness to look at what's there with it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, can you just be curious with it? Because that opened a whole world for me of like expressing my feminine and being available. And I realized there was all these control patterns and all these things where women in my family had actually dominated over men and like put power over and cast spells and created all these things where men would then deny themselves of their full power because of the way that women would be. So it was this whole thing, like I was like, whoa, like blew my mind open when you look at what's really going on underneath it, because the language patterns and everything that goes with it, it's all connected. So yeah, it's really cool.
It's really powerful work to watch people shapeshift into their authentic nature and then accept a part of themselves they didn't even know existed or that they denounced. They didn't even know that you could do that. And then to watch the level of multi-dimensional freedom that happens is like nothing I've ever seen before. And that's why I don't just, like in my really big retreats, we don't do this work. It's like the cohort that I just did was a 12-week mastermind with like 15 high-level leaders. I only do that with that because they've already done all this other work. So it's like my trainings are tiered.
Yeah.
And that's why they have ABCs. You won't teach a baby who doesn't know ABCs pre-calculus. And that's another thing that coaches do. They just like dump all the information. I'll just touch and hints, but like when I'm in spaces, I'll just tap on it and then I'll see who responds. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna tell them about this program or, it's that's that same, but that's just me being a skilled person speaking into everybody's realm of awareness in the room. And so, but I love That's some of my it's my favorite some of my favorite work. Like
Mm,
I like my brother's the family historian. I
mm.
thought I was the only person that was like me.
Yeah.
When he freaking cracked the code of finding out 7, 8 generations back on my grandmother's side, every single one of them were educators and teachers, but they also broke the they broke the mold of what could be done by a black person in every generation. Like
Mm,
they were on like literally what could be done. I've done the exact same thing in the modern day, but in my own way as a teacher, facilitator, coach, educator, energy worker. But like I broke the mold because you don't typically see black people doing what I do at the level in which I do it.
yeah.
You don't see pretty much anybody, but I'm not coming from that place. This is inside of me
Mm,
to disrupt constructs. It's like I can't help it. It's literally in my lineage.
mm,
And then on my dad's side, my brother cracked the code, was like, yep, this like rock and roll hall of fame and this right here, blues, and taught Elvis Presley half of what he knows and all this other stuff. I just found this out 3 weeks ago
this
as
makes
I'm
so
right
much sense.
as I'm writing a song called Resurrection. Let's all get back to the soul. And then all of a sudden it was like, yep, our grandfather influenced Elvis Presley, but Elvis Presley never gave him credit. I was like, how did that happen?
Mm,
There was like, well, in the 50s, there was a street called Bill Street in Memphis, Tennessee. You hear about things when you're a little kid, but you don't process the way you do as an adult. So I never revisited the conversation
yeah.
until I was full throttle in music. And I was like, Anthony, did our grandfather have anything to do with like influencing Elvis? He was like, anything. He was like, he was the main influence. I said, how? He was like, well, there was Bill Street and it was nothing but uh, blues players. It was all black people, jazz and blues player, BB King, jazz people. And our grandfather had a band there, and Elvis Presley used to deliver milk.
Mm,
And he would deliver milk on Wednesdays and Thursdays to our grandfather's band and sit in on the sessions.
yeah.
And I was like, but how did he influence Elvis? He was like, our grandfather's name is Flying Calvin. He was known for his shaking and his knee rolls and everything. And I was like, oh my God. I've experienced so many times I come up with ideas and people like steal shit from me since I was a little kid and I never knew where it came from. It was almost like stolen influence. So I
Mm,
decide to look up my grandfather because why not? And I'm looking at a man that looks like me at 70, same nail bed, same skin tone. Because my father was adopted at birth, so everything was confusing.
yeah, yeah.
And then he's telling the story. The first video I look up about the Elvis thing, and I was like, I know that look because the same exact thing happened to me in the music industry with somebody that was considered the modern day Elvis. That's why I left the industry.
Mm,
I'm like, oh my God, it transferred the exact same story. So therefore, I get to actually be a voice of expression for
mm,
those who didn't have
mm,
that expression. Because during that time, there was just like it's white supremacy. I mean, it was like racist and everything. It was the racial divide.
mm,
My grandfather let Elvis use his guitar on Elvis's first TV appearance. And right there is when the first rock and roll evolution started. So
mm,
the origin of rock and roll is actually stolen soul because all the black artists were already making music like that.
yeah.
They were already they were already had that.
Mm,
But that's what they called rock and roll.
mm. That's
So
crazy.
I get to literally, I'm doing a flip on rock and roll. I'm calling it rock and soul.
Oh, I love it.
And that's the style of music that I'm doing. But I'm also paying homage to those who came before me
Mm.
who never got the opportunity to express themselves in the way that they rightfully should have been expressed.
Do you know what I love about you the most? And I remember this from our last podcast. You compared yourself to Prince and Michael Jackson in one of the comments. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, oh, he's so bold. Like, it was so cool. But it just lands because there's no hidden agenda behind the comparison. Like, and I think it's my favorite
Who am
thing.
I to say that?
Yeah, like it's my favorite thing about you because you're just like, I'm fucking here, like in such a beautiful way where it's like, I'm so available for the fullness of what I am. And I think like it's just such a beautiful lesson. Like even seeing my partner walk out and be like, oh, like just from being in your energy, like I think it's the most beautiful gift that you give the world of just how authentic you are.
I really appreciate it, and that's something I struggled with for years.
Mm,
I remember being 13. I saw Nelson Mandela, and I saw Gandhi, and I said, "That's me."
mm,
And instantly, I said, "But I can never be like that because those are the type of people who get killed."
mm,
And I shut off my bigness. Almost everybody that's going to watch this knows that there is much more inside of them that they give themselves permission to.
yeah.
But it wasn't until 3 years ago, and I was just in a deep meditation, and I was talking to my grandmother who's on the other side, and I said, "Big Mama," I was like, "There's something missing from my life." She's like, "Garrain, you're climbing the wrong mountain. You were never meant to be the most polarizing person. You were meant to whisper great secrets in the most powerful leaders' ears." And
Mm,
she was like, "You're meant to, they can't kill who they can't see."
mm,
Because now the one person becomes a body of leaders.
yeah.
And I just remember fully accepting myself and all that comes to it. It's not Michael Jackson. And no, there's something inside. It's not Michael Jordan. There's something inside. And that's permission to be who you actually are.
Mm,
And so time somebody comes to they come to me and they're like, "Oh my God, Garrain, I like relate to you so much." It's like, "Oh my God, it's just thank you." And they start doing this. I said, "Stop there.
mm,
What you see in me is a reflection of what's inside of you.
mm,
You get to keep that power. It's not me. If you spot it, you got it."
mm,
So I see the thing in Michael.
yeah.
I see the thing in Prince.
Mm,
And I know that's me.
mm,
Not them, but the thing inside of them that allows them to operate from the multidimensional. That's why my personal development, that's who I am in the personal development world. And now, like going into my music, I don't have to be like, "What are they gonna think? I'm a book writer." I'm like, no, I am multidimensional, and so are all of we.
yeah.
We're all multidimensional, living a linear life, which is the lowest vibration that you can actually live. But we've been taught
Mm,
how to read linearly, and however you're taught how to read is also how you think.
mm,
So if you think linearly, you're the most limited version of yourself.
yeah.
You can read the signs. You can read a book. You can read what your body is saying. That's multidimensional reading.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. Paul, do you know Paul Chek?
Yes.
Yeah, so his work actually says like if we teach a child to read too much before the age of 6, it disconnects them from their creative brain. Like because they're like so logical and so like linear in what they're saying. So like there's actually studies now that have proven that as well. Like it's okay to teach them to read, but not making them like this is how you've got to be doing it and all those
Yeah.
sorts of things. So it's just crazy.
My way of reading is to my 3-year-old is so funny because we'll just have a regular book about like lollipops
Yeah.
and I'm just infusing codes the whole time. It's like, say, "I am this," and that, but the pages don't say it.
Yeah.
And then she'll repeat it. And then sometimes I'll forget what I said because she might want the same book every time.
Yeah.
She was like, "No, right there it says I am." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, like I'm a solution finder." So it keeps me in check
Yeah.
with infusing these codes
Mm.
into somebody. It's our future.
Yeah. Does Soul sing the song, the stories as well? Tiariki has this thing
Not
where,
when she's about to go to bed. No.
oh, really? He will like, I'll say a couple of words and then he'll sing the rest of the line. Like it's really cute. Like just how they play with so much of it. So yeah, I'm going to take that one and infuse the codes too. I
Oh
love
man,
that.
like not nonstop. And then even before she could even process certain things, I was always doing that.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm supposed to be reading this thing, but I'm just like I am very kind to people and
Mm,
da da da. And there's no such things as monsters in the closet. So now there's no monsters in the closet. She was like, "Tell the monsters in the closet I said thank you for protecting me."
oh, that's
I
really
planted
cool.
that.
Yeah.
in stories. And
Yeah.
now that's what she is like. Hey, monsters, thank you for protecting me.
That's so cute.
3-year-old.
So cute. Awesome. Alrighty, I'm mindful of time and I've really loved this conversation. And I asked you last time, but I want to see if the answer is different. If this is the last time that anyone ever hears you speak, what would you like them to hear today?
You are so beautiful to you. Oh, you are so beautiful to you. Can't you see? You're everything you're hope for. Everything you need. You are so beautiful to you. Once you know that you are beautiful to yourself, the world will benefit from your overflow and not your exhaust.
Mm. I received that too. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
We were talking before, you've got a retreat coming up soon.
Yeah.
Can you please?
And an album coming out.
And an album. I'll be listening to that
Yeah.
because that just blew my mind of what you just did there.
Yeah.
When's the retreat? When's
So
the album?
my next retreat is June 6th through the 8th in Austin, Texas. It's called Artist Power Awaken. Don't be afraid of the word artist. Everybody's a creator. Even me as a mom, yep. Who do you think designed the apples? And who do you think like put these matching clothes? Like anyone who creates anything is an artist. And anything in the way of your authentic expression is the stuff that we work on and through in a safe environment, high vibrating people. There's nobody teaching what I'm teaching, not in the range at which I'm teaching it and can teach it practically. There'll be about 100 people. And if your spidey senses are calling, say yes, and then figure the rest out. You answer the portal of possibility when your body is speaking. And so I would love to meet you in person and to see what happens when the flower starts flowering. Then I also have an album coming out in the next 6 months, and it's called Songs in the Key of Truth. So every single song is deep within from my soul, but it's speaking to parts of humanity that might feel alone, but I just know I'm a drummer, so I know how to move people and I know how to make certain vowel sounds. So I'm going to design the song and the choruses based off of how I want the mouth to shape and sing, which is going to support, and then the vibration of the music is going to support the energy in releasing. So it's a whole retreat ceremony in one song. It's going to have 9 songs on an album, and you're going to move, you're going to dance, you're going to feel, you're going to heal, and you get to like be excited about music again, because right now music is not in a good place. The music in a whole.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your wisdom. As always, it's such a pleasure to just have you in the space and share your magic with the world. So.
And thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to feel safe in my body to share what's true for me.
So good. So good. Thank you.
Embodied Business.